to the Thursdays Are the Best Days podcast, episode 331. 31?
Yes. Yes.
Three times one is three, and then you have both your threes and your one accounted for? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The easiest one. Um, hey Bruno,
Hi, Nick.
can I say this is probably one of the rare podcasts that's ever been filmed on a Thursday?
You know, you are correct. Doesn't happen often.
Can I also tell you that for like the 8th year running, maybe more, um, I don't know how many years we've been doing this at this point, that Thanksgiving has fallen on a Thursday again.
Every time.
Maybe not
Six,
next year, but
like
definitely this year.
a little over 6 years, probably, by the way. Close to 6.5.
I'm distracted at the moment, but I'm prepping the next segment.
So, the reason that this is getting recorded on Thursday is my fault. It's my fault because I bought a new game. I bought SnowRunner, and apparently more people were interested in it than I thought.
It's the rare time that you threw out a game early without anyone throwing it on you early.
Yeah, like, I wanted this game. I've wanted it for a while, and I didn't know if people would want to play it. And it never really came up, and then it got on sale, and then I just decided I wanted it. With or without playing with other people.
With or without anyone else, he was fucking watching it.
That was me. So, it's my fault.
So, but it's Thanksgiving. Oh, you have to wake up and cook, don't you? I
I
kind of forgot
do?
about that. You
Don't
have to
have to
wake up
wake up
super early?
super. Nah, it's
Okay.
okay. It's not too bad. You
So
probably
we'll
get a nap in.
keep it as short as a normal cast is, but mostly because uh Bruno has 2 weeks off after this.
Woo!
He
Vacation
gets to do
time.
it. He gets to do it every once on a Wednesday night. Probably dead nothing or a lot.
Who knows?
Um, Bruno, I got I got a conundrum.
What's up?
So I'm about to leave on this trip, but leaving on this trip means I'm starting a trip, which means starting with some travel. I got I got a 3.5 hour flight. I think from Philadelphia to Miami.
Yeah, that's not a terrible flight, but it's
No,
something for sure.
but it starts the conundrum for me.
Okay.
I have 6. I have 6 shows downloaded,
Yeah.
but I don't know what show to start.
Mm-hmm.
To start the vacation off with.
Mm-hmm.
I and so I'll go through them, but like I'm sitting here like what's a good show to get out of the way early? Because
Okay.
3.5 hours is a good chunk of a lot of these shows. Like a lot of them are just half an hour shows. Um, so I
Yeah,
I'm stuck.
it's a choice.
So of the 6 shows I have downloaded, in no particular order, just the ones I typed them out as I thought about them and like checked my phones.
Yep.
I have Ted Lasso, which is
Okay.
a show I only feel like I can watch around the holidays. Not because it's a holiday show, but because a couple of the episodes are always like It's like uh I only will watch the Harry Potter movies between like September and like end of December.
Okay.
The large theme of them in the middle of each episode has to do with like a Halloween, like a Christmas, or like a.
I never really thought about that, but I think you're right. Yeah.
They don't have a Thanksgiving, but then they have like a late. We'll call it like a fall like equivalent of what a Thanksgiving would be without saying it's Thanksgiving, like a fall harvest type
Yeah.
like festival type time. But with how short the movies is, it always feels like a big chunk when they mention it. So like we only watch the Harry Potter movies in the fall, and it's a pretty common thing. I saw like a Reddit like post about it this fall, and I'm like, oh, so I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
All the movies, not all the movies released in November, but I think like half of the movies released in like November as well. So it's like also like when they originally released ish time frame.
Okay.
But I've only ever watched Ted Lasso during the holidays, so if I don't watch it now, it will I can't bring myself to watch it in like February. So it's like till next year would be like if I don't watch it now.
Fair enough. Makes sense, at
Um,
least with your logic.
but I don't. It doesn't feel like a start off the vacation series to me. Um, then I got you. You graciously got Tower of God for me.
Okay.
Quick, easy. Don't got to worry about it too much as like watching it on a plane and people around me. I'll say that more as it'll become more apparent as I say the next one.
Okay.
Um, The Boys, the Amazon series, very graphic, very
Tends to be.
uh,
Yeah.
not one I would think I'd watch in public on a plane.
Fair enough. That logic checks out.
So I'm like, oh, that one doesn't feel right, just because I'll be like watch like some dude, the stewardess would be like walking by as like the worst type of scene ever came on.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the show Invincible?
I think I've heard of it, yeah.
It's based off a comic. It's like American anime.
Yeah. I haven't seen too much about it, but I think I've heard about it. Or somebody asked for it or asked about it.
I downloaded it because I liked the first season and I was gonna watch the second season, but I'm not like dying to watch that show. But it's one
Okay.
to watch and you can download it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Most of these are on Amazon just because free downloads and
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
The Legends of Vox Machina season 3.
Okay.
Um, that one's just a uh
Yeah.
they do classic stuff. It's good. Um, and then Agatha All Along. It's Disney. It's like a Marvel one. Um, very well rated series. Um, uh, just
Mm-hmm.
which is late Halloween, but I'm still in the realm of like watching it.
Yeah, you're in the region at least.
But so I wasn't feeling five of them, and that's why I kind of had you download Tower of God for me because I was like,
Yeah.
am I a 13 episode? I'm trying to think of how Northern Lion would word this. Am I like a 13 episode Brian or like
Yeah. Um.
if you were in my situation, and it can be your own shows, you don't have to be my list, but if if you were gonna like start off a trip 3.5 hours on a plane, you're gonna download a series because that's the only way you could watch something other than like plane movies. But you don't want to use like shitty earbuds, and you don't have to worry about like Bluetooth pairing your headphones to like a weird plane seat. Um, what TV show has been on your burner so long that you would like? Oh, this is the right one, but in public, but in public.
Oh God, I don't even know. Um.
You know, it's a hard like that's why I'm sitting here. You even have shows to watch.
I definitely do. I'm definitely like behind on stuff. I could get a whole thing. But God, what would I pick?
Exactly. Madeline's next to me, so she can't judge me too. Like it has to be like,
I'm trying to get into my list quick.
would you rip it, Demon Slayer? Would you?
No, because that's a me and Burry show, so I'm waiting for him for when he wants to watch it. Um. Oh God.
Trying to think of other
And
shows you
I'm
would.
like, I want to watch like Delicious in Dungeon because that looked good, but I don't know if that's a public show or not. I just don't know.
Would you throw
I
an
would. I
episode
don't
in?
think I would.
Would
I
you
don't know
throw
if
an
I would roll
episode
the
on the
dice.
on the however big of a screen your phone is on your like TV tray as
Yeah.
you're like watching, like it's like a, oh, you know. I don't know if I'd watch the Defense Girl show in the middle of a plane, you know. Seems a
Even
little.
just to like not explain yourself. I might finish Spice and Wolf.
Okay.
That's a show I could do.
Would you rewatch a show? Like would you rewatch an Odd Taxi?
Not huge on rewatching,
Yeah, same.
but that would be a good one. I don't know.
I
I
again
don't.
it's
It might be like the perfect thing because I don't know how locked into a show I could be on a plane. It's been a
you
while
don't
since
got
I've
much else to
had
do though.
plane.
Like you can't
Yeah,
scroll Reddit, you can't. Again, it's that or like watching a movie on the infotainment screen or reading. But sometimes it eh, sometimes reading on a plane is like for me.
yeah. I don't. I
So,
don't know.
it's you see my dilemma?
I do. It's kind of hard to pick,
I know I've
to be
been sitting here
honest.
like been sitting here thinking about it for like a week plus. But yeah, that was my.
Yeah, I think I would try to read because that's what I've been hooked on lately. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could watch some Clarkson's Farm.
That is a solid option.
I feel like
And
that
I was
fits. Like that's an okay. Like, hey, just throw it on and watch.
it's a safe one. It's an easy one. It's uh
Yeah,
a good one. I don't know how many. I don't have many justifications why I didn't feel like that one to start, other than um the only thing I was slightly on my mind about it was uh might start laughing. I was like, ah,
yeah.
people are like, why is that kid laughing over there? But that was like worst. That was the worst thing that was holding it back. So it was definitely up there in the running.
I think I could stifle a giggle though.
Yeah. So that was, yeah. I'm excited to get a lot of those shows probably watched. Easy enough to like bust through those things at night or in the
Yeah.
morning. Um, then I've also been. I'll just call it like panic downloading a shit ton of books in case I don't like anything.
Yeah.
So I have a large variety of fantasy, couple sci-fi,
Sweet.
couple light novels on my Kindle. I have a ton. I'm not gonna read like 90% of what I downloaded, but
Oh
I
yeah,
definitely
no,
did.
but it's a lot of choices. You have choice of what you want.
Freaking
Speaking
and
of books,
yeah,
I can go on a book tangent here.
can you?
I can. So I think since I last talked about it, I finished a couple books. Heretical Fishing came out with a book, and I read it.
Hmm?
Love that series. I don't know what it is about it. It's like the perfect mix of a story about nothing and a dude fishing. That I just love it. Um,
Can you read the fucking all time to keep the lure in the middle of the goddamn thing?
they they do it well. I don't know what it is. It's you're
But it
not
hooks you.
getting a ton of that. There's a lot of it's a lit RPG book, so there's a lot of like it's a cultivator book, like one of the Chinese Xandria or some whatever it is
Yeah.
series kind of thing. So there's a lot of bullshit going on with that, and people being able to like basically have superpowers. Anyways, the fishing, they describe some fishing. It's not all the time, but it's like a revolving plot line of, hey, I want to do fishing, and he's getting other people to fish. But they do it well. It's not a foreground thing that happens a ton.
So you're really hoping um that's the book they make into a show, so you can watch a fishing show.
Um, I would watch it. Yeah, it's a good
I'm
book. I like it.
We haven't had any fishing. You would love a fucking fishing show.
I've tried. I found one or two.
Have they?
Yeah,
Are
slow
they
loop.
good or just eh?
No, it's like pretty trash.
That sucks. Okay. Um,
But that was a good one. And then because I read the first two books that a while ago, and this was the third that came out. But because I liked that so much, I tried to read the book that was like the father to it, basically. You
okay.
know, like
Inspired.
yeah, like this book inspired heretical fishing. It's called Beware of Chicken. Basically, take the story of heretical fishing, replace fishing with farming, and a crab with a chicken, and you get Beware of Chicken. And it's been good. I haven't liked it as much, but it's still good and enjoyable. But I just have been through a slog where they basically rewound time 1,000 years to tell a story.
Oh,
And it's been 8 chapters of it, and it's been taking me days to get through these chapters.
just oh my god, I need this to be over type thing.
Yeah, but it's like it's relevant enough that I don't want to skip it, but it's just so hard for me to get through. It doesn't it's not the same enjoyable story to me for some reason. But
No,
it
I
is
get
what
that.
it is. Sometimes that happens and you just get stuck in a spot.
There's in the Wheel of Time series, there was a slog of like three-ish book, which a lot of anymore people don't truly. It's debatable if they call it like if you read the books as they were coming out and you waited like a year or two between books,
Yeah.
it was considered a slog. Um, because you would wait a year or two, book would come out, you'd read basically nothing, and uh, it would everyone would be like, "Oh man, fuck, nothing happened. Why'd I wait this time for nothing?" But now that all the books are out and you can just go to the next book, well,
Yeah,
it still
it's
is kind of a slog. Like the story does seem to like do
sure.
nothing. You can get through it and move on, and like get to more interesting stuff. So it's an interesting like some people will be like, "Oh man, this is a slog." New readers are like, "What are you guys talking about?" And then everyone's like, "You don't know the pain of what I felt." And
Yeah.
then so
He Who
weird.
Fights with Monsters also has something a little bit like that too. That I can see the resemblance at least.
Wasn't his early books? Didn't you say he pumped out one like pretty quickly at first?
I
Or
mean,
like 11?
relatively to what you're used to, I think that he's pumping them out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's slowed down a bit, but he's still compared to what you're talking, what you speak of, like with Wheel of Time and stuff like that. Oh, they're cranking these books out.
How many books you said? Is it 10 or 11? You said
I
you, Brian?
I believe it's 11 right now.
But he started in like 2019, 2020.
Let me check.
But it had to be like every I know you said you're like once a year now, but I thought you said at first it was like every 6 months or so.
March 21.
So
That's that's cruising.
6 to 7 months per between books, at least to start with.
It might have even been less. I think some of them were like 4.
So yeah, not
He released the first 4 books in 2021, starting in March.
okay. So three, so four-ish for the first year. So
Yeah, and then another 4 the next year.
um,
I think it's has since slowed down a bit, but yeah,
yeah, that's yeah. Still a slog. You don't ever want to wait, but
yeah. At least the books were out, like you're saying about having to wait for something. The books that those books, when I went through them, they were all out. I could get through them, get to the next one, and it wasn't necessarily that it was terrible. It just was. It was a major change in the story, I would say.
yeah.
Without trying not to spoil things too greatly, it was a major change. Some would probably say for the worse, but it changes again after that. So what can you say?
Um, so yeah, I got I got a ton of variety. So
Nice.
um, I do have that series on my Kindle. Maybe I'll start it. Maybe I won't.
Yeah, if
Um,
you do, let me know. But I'm not gonna push for it or anything like that.
no.
Like
Um,
Dungeon Crawler Carl is also really good. A lot of people say it's the better book if you're looking for like the number one lit RPG book.
yeah, it's on there to
I
start.
think that that's one of the that's
Last,
definitely in the front runner.
I think I
For
have Way of the Shaman and Last Life as two other ones I have on there.
Okay, I have not touched those, so don't know
Uh,
too much.
I don't, no, I don't remember getting this one, but I have the Daily Grind too. Go through the other one. One is just a standalone novel that I have as like a backup, but I want to save it for the audiobook for the car ride on the way there or on the way to
Mm,
work.
okay.
Um, I have some fantasy book from the 90s.
You'll have to keep like a list and just go through this when you get back.
Yeah. One author I like recommended it, like, oh man, this is one of the fantasy series I read, and I'm like, good 90s was a good era for fantasy. Like a lot of good fantasy was pumped out. Not early fantasy by any means, because early fantasy, uh, you know, post post Lord of the Rings, like new genre type deal. But like 90s is when it was like I think it hit a good like a repopularity surge.
Yeah.
Because even like Game of Thrones started in the 90s, I think. What was the first Game of Thrones book? I did first of Thrones book come out. Google load. 1996. It's like even Game of Thrones started in 1996.
Yeah. Man, I
Um,
waiting 20 years, almost 30 years for a series to complete is just pain.
I finished the books. I don't know if I might have been like in ninth grade when I finished the last one in the like the I don't even know what it's five
But is
was
it done?
no.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but I can't think of like what the last one is. Uh, yeah, so 2011, A Dance with Dragons came out. Um, and I thought I'd wait like I thought it was like a max of 3 years because it was 1996, 1998, 2000, 2005, 2011. So I guess I should have been like expecting 5-ish years as like a, yeah, 5 years would be like a good amount of time. Would taking us to 2016, graduating high school. I think on a long end, you would have said like 2018, which would have been like midway through college. But now we're at 2024, so we're
Yeah.
at like 13 years after. As someone who you enjoyed the Game of Thrones show, um,
For a while. Yeah.
um, there is a there is a I guess people have not much to do about it than like watch him do interviews and like talk about the book every once in a while. Um, the prevailing like internet theory thinks that from everything they've been able to piece together is we don't know what character, but it seems like people think he might have. People think he killed off a character that he killed off a character to stay true to what he is doing with the series, but now he kind of realized that killing the character off has caused him to write himself into a hole,
Hmm.
and I think he doesn't know how to move on from it. Like, not like in a way that the show kind of started to go the way the show went. I think he realized he wrote off a character. He was trying to be edgy by writing off a character, but then now doesn't know what to do because I think he's trying to like. It's not too late to introduce new characters by any means in a story, but I think you're getting later in the story to introduce the character that's gonna win it all, or like play a large part
Yeah.
because you've established all these other characters just to throw a new one in. And if you throw a new like main character in that's just gonna start like owning shit, seems kind of late, and like where did this guy randomly come from type thing.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
I don't know if we'll ever see truly the end of Game of Thrones, but it is what it is. Um, I think the show probably got kind of close to what he's gonna end up doing, but like I think the last stretch, I think it would be very different if you go back and like retcon something, because I think in like the internet thinks just killed off the one character he realized he actually needed, and now he does it. Just it's in a such a hole. I don't think he can
Yeah.
easily write himself out of.
Yeah. It's a problem. It's probably why
So
the books are so hard to write.
it is like it's. I mean, this is epic fantasy, so a step up from a fantasy. You know, I guess the only. I guess the only real difference with a fantasy and epic fantasy is epic fantasies are supposed to be like you can't write a one novel epic fantasy.
Yeah.
I think by definition they have to be like a very long drawn out process to a degree. Um, most stories don't hit the like 700-page mark. Um, of like dense words, uh, stuff. But like just I don't even know how to word it right. The planning you have to do to know where the story's gonna go 10 to 12 years in the future, because you know it's just gonna take you 10 to 12 years to write um all these books and get everything done and publish them and stuff. You kind of have to know the whole. You have to know. I don't know, you don't have to plan it out. Some authors probably don't like do a story plan, but you have to kind of know where you're writing from the beginning.
Yeah, you gotta have a direction to follow at least.
That's why I do very much like the author Brandon Sanderson, who does the Mist Born, and then like the Stormlight Archives, which is like right now the biggest epic fantasy series ongoing at the moment. I would say
Yeah.
probably one of the bigger fantasy writers out there doing stuff, and that's well known. But he very much knows where each story's going because he's like, well, to finish everything in my Marvel Universe series, I should, by the time I'm all done with that, I should be like 76. So he has in his brain all the books and all the stories he needs to tell this whole tale. But he has a direction of like he has like Avengers Endgame planned out in
Yeah,
his
he's
head.
when you get to that kind of detail, I feel like you need to have that plan, or else it's not gonna. The pieces aren't gonna fit together right.
And he still like randomly throws different books like, oh, I had extra time so I wrote this book and I thought it was fun. But like um the Stormlight Archive, the next and last book in the first half of like 10 book, he's already said it's going to be a 10 book epic fantasy series. The first 5 are Era 1, the second 5 are Era 2. The first 5 or the last book of the first 5 come out December 6th. Um uh and I don't think it's going to be a slog by any means. Like it's definitely you've reached a precipice in the series of like I think it's going to definitely hit that whole like close up a lot of storylines in the sense that there's going to be some time skip and all these active things that can't be ignored in a time skip have to be like wrapped up. So I think this book is going to be a span of 10 days, but it's going to be like it's going to be a massive book for just 10 days worth of progress. So
Yeah,
it's going to probably feel slow. Um but going into it, he knows like, oh, this is the first 5. Then he's going to take a break from the series and then he's going to like do some of the other series that he's been ignoring. Not ignoring, but like he's like, I need to finish these 5 books and then I can start worrying about these other books. Oh, this one's finally gonna get a like 2 or 3 book, not sequels, but like finally get like books in their series done. Um, he he actually does like a weekly update where he like tells you he's like, oh, I am 50% done with this book. I am 60% on revision 2 of this book. I am 5% on this book. So he actually like on a weekly thing does like a 4 or 5 minute YouTube video like telling you like, hey, I'm doing revision. I think in this Stormlight book, the last one, he's like he got up to like revision 5 or something like that. So
damn.
because he does like alpha reads and beta reads, so he'll do like 2 revisions and then like an alpha team will read it, and then he'll get a bunch of
Yeah,
feedback on it, and then he'll do revision like 3, 4, and then the beta team will read it, and then he'll do like revision 5, and it's just like buttoning up things for publishing. You can, and then the book I'm listening to now to hold me over, it was just a random COVID book that he's like, ah, you don't know this, but I wrote 3 random books over COVID because I had extra time. Here are them. Just like drops them.
it's crazy to just be able to drop books like that.
Yeah. Um. So definitely, it's a it's a thing I envy because it's like so much. These series are so good, but the amount of planning he and I know like other authors have to put into them to get this done. Um. I think that's why I asked you about the he fights with monsters of like, is there a direction like in a lot of his series, there's definitely a goal that even if there's side quests, even if there's like side tangents and not filler, but like the equivalent of like a filler in them, you definitely know where the end game is of like what he's trying to achieve in like X series. Um, and versus like I think you said he fights. They're just kind of doing things. In every kind of book you said it kind of changed like what the direction of like.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a super like I can't pinpoint the exact goal. Um, I definitely feel like there are sort of goals going on, but it's not like, oh, I have to get to the top of the mountain, you know?
Yeah, there's no like series, true series that known to you. There's no true series goal. There's no like once he achieves X, the series is done.
Not that I know of, no. Not saying that there isn't, but not
No,
that I know of.
maybe there isn't. Maybe it's being dropped like foreshadowing and stuff, but you don't have a defined out like.
No.
And this Stormlight book, the last one, it's 10 days because it's gonna wrap up. Like, there's a major uh story storyline that's been like brewing where it's not really even spoilers to say this. At the end, at day 10 of the book, there is a I don't call it a fight. I'm gonna call it a challenge between
Okay.
two characters
Sure.
and fate of like the worldy type like um uh uh fate hangs in the balance of the result of this fight. Now, you the villain of this has like been around since book one. Like you knew about him from book one. You didn't know
Yeah.
what the intentions were, but like um you kind of did. But interesting thing, every author kind of has their own like signature on books.
Sure.
And they do it. One of Brandon Sanderson's signature is he's very into like can't remember if they start or end a chapter because you, when you are reading through, it doesn't matter if it's the beginning or end of a chapter. It's just like in between chapters.
Yeah.
Um, he does these random ass like in book one. You start reading a chapter. I'm just gonna say it's the start of the chapter, and we're gonna go from there. If it's the end of the chapter, I apologize. And you're reading this, and it's like for the first like third of the book, you you get these last words of uh these random people in this world dying. You don't know who these characters are. It's just like doctors writing down what people are saying at like the end of their lives. Like, oh, it's not even like they're dying from like they're just like sick. Like, oh, terminal cancer. This person's finally getting ready to die. As they're getting ready to die, they spit out some like random ass prophecy type like bullshit, and you're like, what is this all about? And
Yeah.
like three books into it, you read back into it, like, oh shit, this is like dumping a lot of information. That's like one of his signatures of just like dumping into you these random interludes. Um, and you're like, I know I should care about like I don't know why I keep hearing about these people dying and like spinning off random nonsense, but it's probably really important and I should be like listening because there's probably something here that I don't know about.
Yeah.
Um, in the Mistborn series in the Era 2, because it's in like Industrial Revolution time, uh, the interludes are like uh the broadsheets, so like a newspaper, like you get a lot of like random snake oil ads and um uh like not comic stories, but like a column in the paper about like, oh, mysterious masked hero saves the day again using his patent pending freaking uh detective spyglass made by the spyglass company. He was able to spot the person on the right, like that type of things. But then you start learning stuff about the world because you're like, oh shit, um, there's these companies now that are like making this technology, and you're understanding the ads, and you're understanding this and that. But like, you don't know why he's telling you it, but like you're like, oh, is this important? Or like spyglasses is gonna become like a theme in the story that you now know are a thing because he's like introduced them through this like broadsheet like
Yeah.
trying to sell people it, but tell them in a story type like oh, what's the type of like an advertisement that you don't know, subliminal messaging.
Yeah, I got you. Trying to get
I guess
something
that's the
across
biggest thing
without
about these
trying.
interlude type things. There's subliminal messaging. Like, what is he trying to tell us about the story? But he doesn't want to tell us. But he like it's important enough. He wants us to understand it exists in the world, but not important enough that the main characters need to acknowledge it. Um, or if the main characters just say it out randomly, you feel like there's less mystery because it's just being told straight to you. So I don't know what tangent I'm going off with that, but like I guess it's just that whole planning of like you have to be on your toes with him because he's telling you a lot of what's going on, even if he's not telling you what's going on.
He's telling you a lot of nothing, but that nothing actually does mean something.
One like I am gonna reread his series one day because with the context of what's going on, I think a lot of this stuff will click and you'll be like, oh fuck, he was just telling us this whole thing was gonna happen like 4 books ago.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Um, he's he's yeah, he's one I would love some of his works to be made into like movies or shows, but I almost am of the opinion that like we need a good fantasy series that's animated.
Yeah,
Like
like a couple of these lit RPG books are getting graphic novels done, like a lot of pictures, almost like
yeah.
a comic kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. I could see some animation. I think Dungeon Crawler Carl's getting something.
And I don't like even from just like he has such good magic systems that I'm getting tired of CGI making things look bad. Like I'd rather not have them have to blow big budgets on like in Mistborn. Through the powers of magic system, certain characters can replicate flight. They don't have the power to fly, but through the powers they do have. So it's all based on like alchemy basically. So like certain metals give you certain powers. If you're
Yeah,
able to burn steel, you can push on through. You consume like steel shards. Like take a vial of like probably one character uses whiskey, so he shaves a bunch of like steel shavings into his like whiskey shot
yeah,
and consumes that, and through that he burns the steel to produce steel pushes. He can push on like basically any metals that are like magnetic, and he can push himself off, or he can push the object, or he can push himself. But it's very. I think when he said how to on a thing like how do you come up with the whole like steel pusher? It's like iron. If you can burn iron, you can pull. If you can burn steel, you push.
mm,
One's called a coin shot because you can then use coins as like you're like a you are a gun. You can take a coin and send it with a bunch of force out, and you're basically your own type of gun. Um, so you can have guns in a fantasy world that don't have guns, and you can have basically like shooters.
yeah,
And then people that are like iron are called like lurchers because they can think of just like standing there and someone just like pulls you, you like lurch forward. But I think he said the way he created it was he's like the force doesn't in Star Wars the force doesn't make sense. What are the rules of the force? You can just move objects like any which way up and down. Can you like just like do 180s like loop de loops? He's like
mm-hmm,
I wanted to put some actual like thought and science to it. So like if you're steel put like let's say you have a metal like a steel girder
yeah,
and you are like a 180 200 pound like person. If you push against the steel girder, you're going to get pushed back because you don't you
yeah.
don't inherently have enough force to
Every
push
action
the
has an equal and opposite reaction. Yada
yes.
yada. Yes.
Um how do you can't just put like okay, so you have a coin. So coins you are way more mass than the coin. So you push the coin away from you, your mass
Yeah,
is enough.
it's the velocity of whatever you're doing has a weight and a speed kind of math equation that equates to your weight. and
Yeah,
speed being nothing.
exactly. But
Your
if he puts
mass
the
means
coin away
something.
from you, it's like in a direction straight. Like you can't just make it like 90-degree to the left and like.
Yeah, you can't pull like the bending a bullet bullshit. So
But like like the magic like that, like if 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 they ever do make that, like I think he himself, he was not that he was having a hard time selling his stuff, but I think he was having a hard time selling his stuff in the way he was going to be happy with it.
yeah,
Um, so he like wrote a screen adaptation to his own book that he's like, hey, I know this book doesn't 100% work if you make it a movie. No, he's like, no book. As much as people want 100% faithful adaptation, books don't equate to movies because
yeah, they're hard.
books have inner monologue, movies and TV shows don't have inner monologue. Um,
True. So that's a big point. Yes.
that's the hardest thing with a book to a TV show is like you can't unless you have the character talk to himself. You
Yeah.
can't like oh
Which it's hard to do without making them seem crazy sometimes.
right. You can't say character walked in the room. Their facial expression is grimmer than it used to be. Um, uh, in a in a he gave an example once, and I struggle to remember it, but the long short of it was like it was something like that. He's like in a book. If I was gonna write someone walked into a room, I can add a bunch of context details. I can throw in random information that you get as a book because I have to describe to you the situation without visuals. So
Yeah.
you're okay with the character walked in, the expression on their face was grim. Uh, you can tell something wrong or bad had just happened.
Sure.
It's like, okay, let's put that in a TV show or movie. A character walks into a room with a little bit of a grin on, with a little bit of uh, a look on their face.
Yeah, they're
You
kind of giving you some extra clues, even if it wouldn't be purely known,
yeah,
kind of.
the in the TV show or movie, you have to have the character say, "Hey, you don't look like what's wrong?" Like, "Oh, is there something wrong?" Or you have to like
It's
turn
gonna
it
be
into a
hard to read just from
conversation.
a facial expression, unless
Right, and the
you
character
really nail it.
right. And to get the people up to speed in a TV show or something like that, um you have to you have to turn it into a conversation that never happened in the book. You have to turn it into maybe you actually watch what happened to it. You have to do something so the reader understands the context of the situation in different ways in the book. Now the
Yeah.
conversation like the grim expression is an easy one to get out of, but he's like as you can probably tell, it gets way more complicated as like the
Sure.
situation gets more complicated.
Or even something as
Um
simple as like a smell.
yeah.
Like you can describe a smell in words. How the fuck are you gonna do that with a show?
No, unless they randomly just talk out loud or maybe you have to introduce a
Yeah.
companion. Cuz then like oh maybe your solo book your movie or your book about a guy that's pretty solo all the time, you have to introduce the Sherlock Holmes needs the Watson because the Watson is who he can describe like who he can work things out with. And that's honestly a great example of like oh, in the book this guy just knew things and he didn't have to like puzzle things out with someone else. Well, yeah, 'cause he was puzzling out it with technically you as the reader. As he was thinking about like why is the room disheveled? However, the cooking instruments not.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they like stop the argument like, and they're like talking through it. But in the show, you have to introduce like the Watson and to be like Watson, have you noticed the pot is still on the stove? It's like oh, the pot is on the stove. What does that mean? So it's
You know, I was trying to think of an example of if, for instance, in any anime, do they ever have inner thoughts come out? And my gut reaction was yes. And I thought of an example. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Dude has an ability in his brain, basically, that's basically a computer. Think of it like that.
Yep.
He has numerous conversations with that ability during the show, even. And it goes okay. I don't think they're anything as in depth as the book, but it still came across. And I'm trying to think of any like real TV that does that, and I don't think there has been. Like you're saying, basically.
Yeah. So I would prefer some of his the long what I'm trying to get at as my point is I think an animated I don't want to say anime because that's like a specific thing, but like an animated film, um, I think you can get away with a lot more book elements
I think you
than
can. Yeah.
uh, like I think you can get away with an inner monologue more away better with a animated median versus a person median.
Yeah,
And I
they
don't know
can
if that's
always
just
do like
because,
graphics and stuff. Like it pop you out of break a wall and go into like a mind space or something.
and honestly, when you get to some of these magic systems,
Yeah.
I just it, animated median is just so much better for these magic
Oh,
systems because
absolutely.
you can make things. I don't need 4 or 5 great scenes of CGI of this magic system of how it would look like if I was the person living it. I just want to see all these like like I just want to see it.
Sure.
I want to see the fight scenes with somewhat unrealistic like body movements and actions because like I'd rather see a cool fight scene animated versus not. Now I think maybe I'm probably in a more minority of it, but like there's one or two of his things that I'm like I just you know I, they just had a he does a podcast too and he described that like uh they just did a show of like why do uh some of these IPs just go so far off the rails versus like the original source material and he's like it's hard for these it's writers and creatives have good stories to tell and they would be the trendsetters but then the executives and produce like the executives who pay for these things don't want to try to find the new trend they just want to hop on the current trend
Yeah.
and
Why take the gamble when you don't have to?
he's like um because he finished the last 3 books of the Wheel of Time and I was really excited for that show because he is a producer on the show but even he's not super thrilled of the way the show went or is going, but he's still actively working on it. I think he's like, I'm the only one that can put input on it as one of the authors of it, because the original author has passed away. But he's like, I don't, I know why they're going this way, and he's like, basically, the people that are paying for this want another Game of Thrones, so they're
Yeah.
trying to make it another Game of Thrones instead of it letting it be its own thing. Because they know there's money in the Game of Thrones, but they don't know if there's money in this.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to I'm almost positive I've brought it up on the podcast before that I find that shows that adapt the source material faithfully, I tend to enjoy those shows better than when they go off script on their own.
And I think a lot of people do because they brought up the point where it's like I think he and the other author he does this podcast with he's like thankfully has been a couple shows that have come out that have been faithful and very much not trying to be a filter of a trend that came out and have been great. The two examples were the Last of Us TV show, which was very well received,
Yeah,
very
I think
well
that did
close
very
to
well. Yeah.
um
I
even
haven't watched it personally, but I've heard good things.
yep even to like the point where it's like oh man they got voice actor for the character to be the mother of the character in the show because you know let's throw let's
Yeah.
it's a good fan service and it's like oh yeah the voice actor for the character was too old to play the young teen girl Ashley Johnson as you know
Yeah.
um uh was too old for the girl but it's like oh let's get her as the mother um and then I don't know if you watched it either the Fallout series
No, I didn't get to that. I've seen a little bit of it. when
that
Fee was watching it.
obviously the show wasn't based on a particular video game. However,
Yeah,
they stayed faithful to like
to the lore of the story.
yeah, they didn't make major changes where like
They didn't make it a new story that's with a trend like you're mentioning.
yeah,
They stayed to the Fallout lore. They made a story that fits Fallout that
yeah.
would gracefully mesh into canon.
And like they did and they even explored different parts of the story. Like what is happening right now isn't like a book that was in the game or like some side quest that was in the game, but they added a lot of canon. They added a lot of canon that made sense to be actual canon to like um there was the New Republic of California in the Fallout series. Now, no one really understand. There was not too much lore of like what actually happened with it, but you knew it was a point in the story, and they added like, oh, this is part of what happened to the New Republic of California type thing. Like, oh wow, this is how this happened.
Yeah,
Um, a lot of depth of like, oh, in Fallout, it was the Vault Tech, and that's the company that made the vaults, and you knew it was kind of like, you knew these vaults are a social experiment.
yeah,
No spoilers. It's just like the whole premise of the whole goddamn
yeah,
like series. But you get a little lore on like more info on like who Voltec was, and now you get that like oh shit maybe they like wanted the bombs to drop because they wanted to use these vaults type thing. Um, but he's I think they said they're hopeful because they're seeing not that there's been bad. He's like there's been enough adaptions that have been bad, enough adaptions that now have been good that like they're hoping people are convinced they're like hey for if we're faithful to this shit, like look at Fallout. It will sell. He's like, don't if you're gonna get an IP, you're gonna have an audience. Like the Fallout, like you don't have to worry about or even like the weird Game of Thrones at the end where like they were like, oh, we can't appeal to the people that want fantasy. We have to appeal to the moms and like NFL like people. It's like no, those people will enjoy fan. Those people will be open to a fantasy if it's a good series.
yeah.
The reason Game of Thrones got big was because the moms and the dads that like NFL and aren't like big like fantasy people like they said,
I
"Oh
mean,
shit, this is."
I I suggested Game of Thrones to my mom and dad, and they both watched it and loved it when it
And
was, and that was while it was still airing.
I'm assuming before then your mom wasn't a big like
Oh,
fantasy
absolutely not. No,
right?
neither of them.
No, I
But it
so
was
it
a good show.
exactly. So it's like peop if you start with a good base of IP, yeah, sure, the Fallout might be a bunch of video game nerds that want to watch this. But if it's a good series, other people will watch it. I mean, how many Reddit memes did you watch about the sexy cool?
Yeah,
And that was just a bunch of random people are like, "Oh shit, this guy looks hot. Let's watch this."
yeah,
So definitely again. I'm hoping one big series goes animated because I think like some of these fantasy books I think would look a lot better in an animated setting, and maybe it would bring more animated stuff to the American.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, like I'm hopeful for the Dungeon Crawler Carl because that's like actually happening. I think at this point.
what was it?
Um, yeah, and I think that like you're talking about, it might be the breakthrough that might get other things looked at.
Um, yeah, I just like it's crazy because like I guess the closest equivalent to what we have right now of like your average person watching a magical thing, probably Disney princess movie. Yeah, no, because you had a lot of animated Batman, Superman in like the late
Yeah, you
'90s and
did.
stuff. But like, if you think of like truly big animated American things that get a lot of views and a lot of people watch them because there's magic and stuff involved, it is really though the like like Moana 2. That's gonna come out and probably make $1 billion worldwide
Yeah,
global box
probably.
office.
Yeah,
Like, but and I'm sure one day they'll. I think they're actually making a live action of that. But like,
they are. Yes.
how many
The
people shit
Rock
on
is
like
the
the
dude.
live? How many people are gonna like shit on the live action because like it looks bad versus like ooh the like
Yeah,
originally
I don't know why they keep going to live action. I don't know who wants that.
I don't know either, but it's like, oh, I I don't know if you ever watched the Moana. I personally like that. I love that movie. Like the
I th-
music and all.
I think I have seen it actually. I'm pretty sure I have.
But like, oh shit, you have the shape shifting man that turns into like a shark, and like you have the crab that like is like that's just gonna look
Yeah,
bad with CGI, and it's not gonna have like the
yeah,
same. So it's like just stick animated is good for a lot of things like that. If it's gonna be super unrealistic or it's gonna take so much CGI just to make it look the way it's supposed to look,
yeah.
just animate and people will still watch it. So, oh, you know what book? People still talk. I do really want to. I have it, the '86 novel downloaded. I've been always wanting to
I've heard that that's a really good one.
because I love the show.
Yeah, I have heard that that's a really good one.
So I was just I have my cal Calbre Calbre
Calibre is how I
Calibre.
have heard it. I think
I have it up. I have 70 books on my Kindle.
that'll last you a while.
Um uh but did I have any Formula One? We're basically done for the year. I think I missed both last races. I think they're back to back Formula One schedule.
Um, the
Yeah, this
29th and okay, it's coming this weekend and then
oh, is it?
December
It's
7th.
ending on a triple header. This is a triple header ending. This
Oh,
weekend
look at
is
that.
Qatar,
Yeah. Yep. And then Abu Dhabi.
so uh, just watch them.
Sounds
I'm
good.
sure. However, the only real thing to note about them is I think like is McLaren or Ferrari gonna win the constructors champion? But at that point,
Yeah, I
not that
think
we.
they're pretty close. I think that it's definitely a race. It's not.
It's like situations have to happen for both teams to win.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's not like it's a huge thing. So, but we basically jam packed another Formula One season down.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I will say from if we would go from like the beginning of the season, where I would be like, oh, it's probably gonna be another boring season. It did end up being a fun season. Again, there's a
Yeah,
little
it
bit more to
definitely got a
play.
little bit interesting.
There's still a little bit more to play for, and like there's still a little more action in the series season. But like for the most part, it's basically said and done.
Yeah, mostly.
But I think we both agree, like, I think next year is gonna be a straight banger of a season.
It has the potential to be really good. Yeah.
Like I'm talking 2021 levels of excitement in this because I do think there might be like I think Red Bull will still be in the fight
I think they'll
enough,
be back in the fight closer to like what they were earlier
right?
because they'll make changes and make the car better again.
I think McLaren's still gonna have like good car development to
I
say
think
like
that they could get better and they're not that far off right now. Same goes for Ferrari.
right. I think
Um,
there's gonna be three good teams. I think Mercedes might. I mean, this race they fucking
it
killed
depends on
it.
how much they catch up, you know.
Which you can't. At least you're not gonna end the season unless they have two bad races to end the season, and you're like, oh shit, this the Vegas was a fluke. I think at the moment you can kind of say they've been getting back into it enough that like maybe they won't be in it, but they'll be a disruptor.
Yeah.
Like there might be tracks or like situations where they're like they scoop up points, and you're like, oh shit, like Mercedes might not win it. Like I don't, maybe George Russell won't go on a championship winning season. He might. Um, but you probably are gonna say like, oh shit, there might be races where like they score big points, which affects like
Sure.
Lando, Max
Yeah.
type thing.
It might be. It might end up being a very interesting constructor right season.
So as much as like I'm all can't wish for next season, you aren't finishing this season. I think we're gonna in our group that's bigger than ever. Like uh you know, I think Fee and Damon are going to be super hyped that Lando might from the start get to fight for the like that's Lando
Yeah.
not from midway on fighting is going to be like big.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Um, So
Lewis in a
as the
Ferrari. Is that next year, right?
yep.
Yeah.
So I'm
Maybe he'll
I'm
whip the Ferrari strategy into place.
as much as it's like, oh, hope I can't. You hope for the next season because you hope things are different. I think we're definitely going into this next season with things being different.
I think so.
So,
Yeah.
so excited for that. Um, and then the last two races, I fucking hate both of these. These are the like the most boring tracks too to end
They
on.
are. They're a little rough
So,
for sure.
um, yeah, that's that. We've hit the time. I don't need to keep you up later. So, happy Thanksgiving, Bruno.
Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your
Uh,
vacation.
yeah, enjoy all the food you're cooking.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm making
and all that.
a lot of leftovers.
Still be on to. I'll still be on quote unquote tonight,
Fair.
as in Thursday night.
I'll see you then.
So that's all we have for this week's episode of Thursdays Are the Best Days podcast. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
See you later.